is not an untalented guy. He could spin the ball twice on the odd occasion.
The double bounce ball.
The double bounce ball.
Bounces twice and spins twice.
Yeah, it bounces twice and twin spies. Crazy things which Shehan has imagined in his head. So tell us about it, about Pradeep and how you manufactured this character.
Well, it came out of adolescent fantasies, and I think maybe most ideas that's where they bear root. And I used to bowl left arm Chinaman, and
tell people here who probably don't know cricket, what is a Chinaman? Why is it called a Chinaman? It sounds like a racist slur, actually.
Yeah, if I knew it was going to be published in Hong Kong, I would have sort of revised the titling of that.
Okay.
So Chinaman, it's a left-arm leg spinner. So it's a left-arm bowler who spins the ball into the right-hander. Nothing unusual, but you don't get too many of them. So it's like almost as rare as a Chinaman playing cricket.
Longer test cricket is important, and someone like Ashish Nandi laments. He says we have lost the language of lament. I'm not completely with him on this. He says the earlier non-result oriented test cricket where fates are decided, it's the fate which decides, the nature of the pitch, it's unpredictable, and its unpredictability is its glamour. Whereas what happens with one day cricket and T20 is that it ties it down to a result. And he says South Asians as a people are more kind of fatalists who believe in fates. Which is a very, very, very thick essentialist generalization. But he goes with it. He gave an interview in Outlook when 2007 T20 happened. He said, this is another nail in the coffin of test cricket, probably the only game known to humankind that is a living criticism of the urban industrial vision and modernity. So he says, if you see modernity as something that is very techno-functional, rationality, you want results, etc., test cricket defies that. And when Shehan and I were talking, he said about how one-day cricket and T20 kind of changes the dynamics of it, and yet you are fond of test cricket, you say. That's going to live. You're pretty fond of test.
No, I'm pretty certain. But also, okay, now, there is a lot of this myth-making, which I think anyone who's written about cricket, we do that. Many occasions I've sat watching a test match and there's been maybe two bowlers operating from either side.
You would watch it. Have you watched a test match all 5 days?
It's been a long time.
Live on a cricket field?
It's been a long time
When
since
did you last do that?
We're going back to the 80s, I would say, when I sat.
So have you watched it at least on television for 5 days? Stockyamin is an ad copywriter. He lives in Singapore now. Have you managed to suspend time and take a leave and say, okay, Sri Lanka is playing Australia, I'm going to just bum at home, drink from morning till evening and cheer for Sri Lanka? Have you done that?
That would be a good luxury, but no. I don't think, I keep in touch with it. So I consume cricket now through the internet. So I sit there looking at the update, and if suddenly wickets are falling, then I'll run to the TV. But I think, okay, the ability to sit there for 5 days, I think it's a luxury that many of us won't enjoy. But I still think test cricket, it does serve this, okay, you watch a game and nothing much happens, maybe 40 runs are scored, no wickets happen. But then when the analysis happens during the break, they analyze it like it's a Shakespearean tragedy, like it was like this epic battle between the elements and between bat and ball.
What do you say? This Aquaguard presents Harsha Bogle, that stuff? Or whatever, so
you get convinced. Then you watch it and you think, that bit that I fell asleep to, that was pretty epic. Yeah, that and you get sucked in, and I think because it's so long, when you write about it afterwards, you talk about these peaks and how there was a flurry of activity and there was a twist at the end. And I think the good test matches are the ones we've had recently, where it has gone right down to the last session, and we have had reversals and several close endings. And so we've had test matches like that. But if we're going to have ones where one team scores 700, the other team scores 800, and that's it for 2 days, then maybe the nail in the coffin is...
What's that little joke in your book about All Blacks? What's the name of the team?
No, so the All Blacks, the rugby team's called the All Blacks.
There was something else.
The basketball team is called the Tall Blacks. And this is not a joke, the badminton team were called the Black Cocks. That was...
Yeah, Black Cocks, I was trying to figure that out. They're called the Black Cocks. And when there's the badminton team manager is asked, why are you called the Black Cocks? Finally, we have a journalist asking this question. So maybe we'll get covered a bit and we'll rethink whether we are Black Cocks or not, so
White Cocks, whatever. Dispense with the term, but he said, I've done this for 20 years, I've never seen a journalist in my life. I call the team the Black Cocks and I've seen like 20 in the last week, so I'm going to stick with that.
When asked by the press, the New Zealand chief shrugged and replied that in 15 years of holding the post, he had never seen a journalist. Since the rebranding, he has seen over 20. Is there such anxiety in Sri Lanka about the absence of Tamil players at all?
I don't. I think Sri Lankan cricket was more divided around class lines rather than racial lines. And there was a tussle between the English-speaking, the Royals, St. Thomases, the English-speaking elite who saw
They
themselves.
won't know anything about Royals and Thomases if they haven't read the book. So tell us a bit about what it, because we in India have Ranji trophies and Dulip trophies and other things. What is this Royal versus Thomas?
So Sri Lankan cricket, it's based on school cricket, and Royal and St. Thomases are sort of the leading English-speaking schools in Colombo. And they've had like a cricketing tournament that has gone for like 150 years, the longest I think in history. And for a long time, those teams supplied all the prime ministers, all the businessmen and all the cricketers. And in the 80s, what happened was the Arjuna Ranatungas, who came from a Sinhala-speaking Buddhist background, they started replacing this elite, and that was more the tussle of keeping the old school tie going. So that 96 team was full of players from Anand and Aland, like Guru Singh and Mahanama. And so it was more like that than it was racial. They did segregate our cricket clubs along racial
You say
lines.
till independence, political independence, we had this. I mean, it's similar to the Bombay Pentangular story in India, where the Parsis and the princes and upper caste Hindus and Muslims and the whites were all playing this.
But the thing is, it didn't stick. So we had the Tamil Union, we had the Singhali Sports Club, the Moors Sports
Burgers.
Club, the Burgers, and then we had the nondescript cricket club, which was for everyone.
The nondescript
The
cricket
nondescripts,
club.
yeah. Arvind De Silva came from there.
Arvind De Silva came from there.
from
Where
the
did Arjuna
nondescripts.
Ranatunga spring from?
SSC. Singhali Sports Club was basically you had to have gone to Anand or Singhali Sports Club. There was talk in the 90s to get in there. But it didn't stick, so you get Tamils playing for the Singhali Sports Club.
You do have Tamil playing?
Yeah. That happened quite early on. Clubs just grabbed talent wherever they could find it, and so the racial divide didn't stick. And now what's happening is there are a lot of cricket tournaments in the north and the east. They're trying to unearth these demon fast bowlers from the north, and now the story is very much they're trying to like if you look in after the war ended. There are lots of films about Tamil Tiger, the child soldiers at 16 who've been rehabilitated and who've turned to acting and music and cricket, and now the media is trying to play that. So I
This
think
sounds a bit like what's happening in Kashmir right now, because that's one of those conflict zones in India where the Indian army has gone on a charm offensive, if you may call that, and they want the Kashmiris to play cricket and forget about war, and say just play cricket. These are being promoted by the state, both the state government and the army, and they want them to forget what is actually a serious problem with the Indian government that the Kashmiris have, and just play cricket and integrate. And I mean, eventually you might not have them in the test playing side yet, but if they get into, somebody gets into IPL, it will be considered, I mean, in fact, a post-nationalist success, because you don't even need to represent the nation. You can play for Mumbai Indians and rake in maybe $100,000 and do it. So is it similar to that there right now, what's playing out in the camps and where Tamils are being rehabilitated?
I think cricket has always been a good distraction. Like during the World Cup, they pushed through their oil price hikes and all of that. That all happens. It's only like if we had won the World Cup, I think the government would have got away with a lot more. It's just that we lost the World Cup and suddenly everyone notices that there's floods and that there's oil price hikes and all of that. So the government has always used cricket as a way of telling a story.